Welcome to Beginner SQL. This is for analysts and aspiring analysts. You'll be coding with confidence in no time.
So, what exactly is SQL and why is it used? And is it still relevant in the AI era that we're in? Well, SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a standardized language that's used for managing and manipulating relational databases. Now, what does that mean? Basically, we use this language to extract data from large databases that house enormous amounts of data and we extract the data in a digestible form so that businesses can consume the data to solve their data problems. Now, is it still relevant in the AI era? Well, absolutely, because this language has been around for many, many years. But not only that, it is used across industries. So think healthcare, think logistics, think finance, and many, many more. So what will we learn? Well, by the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to gain an understanding of SQL and its importance. We're going to learn how to get started with SQL Server by downloading a free version of it. We're going to also write basic SQL queries. We're going to learn how to remove duplicates. We're going to learn how to exclude. We're going to learn how to join. We're going to learn, in fact, why we code the way that we're coding. And then after that, we're going to identify steps and resources for continued learning. So stay tuned with downloading SQL Server, downloading not only that, but we're going to also download the SQL Server Management Studio in the next few videos, and then we're going to be able to get started.
Okay, to begin, we're going to want to go to this Microsoft page, Microsoft SQL Server Downloads. Under there, getting started with SQL Server on premises or in the cloud, we're going to want to choose the SQL Server Developer. We want to download the Standard Developer Edition. Standard Developer Edition. We're going to scroll down a little further to SQL Server Tools and Drivers. Important, we want to select SQL Server Management Studio. Click Learn More. It'll bring you to this page, Install SQL Server Management Studio. And we're going to be here under Installation Overview. You'll choose the most recent one right here where you can download this installer. It may say 2022. Depending on when you do it, it may say 2023. Right now we have 2022 here. Further down, you'll have the installation walkthrough. After this, we're going to install the actual database. This is where the data lives, called AdventureWorks Sample Database. You're going to want to install under OLTP and the most recent one here, which happens to be 2025. After you finish downloading all three of these, you will be ready to code. Okay, so we've arrived at our SQL Server interface. We want to press New Query to begin with. Drop down AdventureWorks, that's the database that we'll be working from. You want to go ahead and expand this area. Expand AdventureWorks. There's a number of options here: database, diagrams, tables, views. You want to view the tables. Okay, this is our working area. This is where we're going to do all our work for the queries. We're going to start off with a basic SQL statement. You do not have to do this in caps. We're going to actually pull from the employee table. When we execute that, it's going to return all of the data from the employees table. The next statement that we're going to do is select the top 10 from the same exact table. You'll notice that I'm copying and pasting instead of. You see how I have this extra? So for the top 10 piece, the asterisk goes after the number. The asterisk goes after the number. So what we're doing in here is we're just selecting the top 10. We might want to see what the data looks like in a table, but we don't want to, if we have millions of rows, thousands of rows of data, we want to avoid doing a select all for that purpose, because you could be pulling millions of rows of data. It could take a lot of time, and it's not the most efficient, although it can be done as an option depending on your database size. What if I just want to see the top 5? I can actually simply change that number to top 5. And here you can see I'm selecting the top 5. Now you see this organization, there's some nulls in here. So I might decide that I might want to go ahead and exclude nulls. We'll get into that, some data cleansing later. But for this purpose, what we're going to do is go to step 3 and select specific fields from the table. We don't want to select everything this time. We're interested in the job title. Some of these I'm going to drag over, and some of these I am going to actually type and drag over. So you'll see that later on in the course. I might want to see what their vacation leave is. All right, you'll notice I'm simply selecting these. And current flag. All right. From, and instead of typing a human resources employee table, I'm just going to simply do this. So here I have, this looks much better because I have just a number of fields. So what we're going to want to do in the next iteration of this is we selected specific fields. I'm just going to copy this. For demonstration purposes, I'm putting this all in one view. However, we would want to just separate these or erase all of these things that we don't need. But I just want you to see what we've done so far. So what if we only want to see the current employees, right? So we're going to start to put our filter in, whereas it starts with the where clause. We call it a where clause here. I just want to see the current employees equal 1. And what that tells us here is that these folks are current employees. Now, what if I didn't have that? I'm going to gray that out. See what I just did? I commented that out. The green text allows us to write comments or notes beside our query, either above or below it, and that can help us understand why we're doing what we're doing, and it can remind us of why we have structured the query the way it is. So in this particular case, we really don't have any employees that are not current. So let's see what else we can find. Well, we want to make sure that everybody here for this purpose is salary. So salary in this case equals 1. And I'm going to go ahead and go up here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to comment this out. When it turns green, it means it's not going to impact us. So you'll find that that's pretty neat to do. Okay? Look at that. So what I did here, 0 means no and 1 means a yes. So you want to make sure that we're just capturing the salaried employees. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we capture everyone in the job title except not equal to the vice president. So now we're beginning to exclude information. Okay. All right. See what I just did here? Want to see everybody that's salaried that is not a vice president. Okay. So that's what we have here. But what about making sure we have no duplicates? Distinct removes duplicates. I'm going to put a comment here. That's one way to do it if we add that. Feel free to do this. All you have to do is type 2 dashes and it'll turn green. And you can add that here. See, this note would be helpful, what we did here. So we have written a basic SQL statement. We have our fields here. We have what our conditions should be, or our filters. The next thing that we're going to want to do is say what we want to include in here. So we can actually change this. I'm going to copy this, go down here, and we can just say, well, what we do want. We want everyone, and I'm going to put that is a vice president, and that is a design engineer. All right. If I select this, I'm going to get 4 values. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to comment this out. Comment out. I can also take this. You're going to learn a couple of things. Add new query here if I'm working on 2 separate queries or 2 separate projects, and we can just have a clean slate to work from. So I want everybody that's vice president and engineer. Let's run it again. But what if they come back to me and they say, but I also want to see a view of those that aren't? Now we're down to 48. Okay, we're going to continue here with renaming some of these columns to make it easier for us to read again in this view. And I can actually put the brackets on there. Job title. Actually, I'll just be lazy, highlight that. Oops. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So you can select it, as I mentioned before, and you can type it in. This just makes it a little bit easier, again, to read, as I mentioned before. There are a number of ways to do this. Next we want to do is we're going to want to go ahead and aggregate some of this. I'd like to see, or the business would like to see, just how many vacation hours would they want to see an aggregation of it. Aggregation of the vacation hours, as well as the sick leave hours. So now we're going to be putting some formulas in here, renaming. Let's see, sick leave hours. So now we get to rename this. For consistency, we'll go ahead and come over here. All right, so we've renamed that current flag. In order for this to be successful, we're going to have to do a group by. Anything that is not a calculation goes in the group by statement. Okay? Anything that is not a calculation and not included in a calculation. Job title, hire date, current flag is not currently included in the group by, so we don't need to add that. We don't need to add that to our data. So we've got an aggregation, we have a message here. What could that be? It is telling me that the salary flag wasn't included. This is a common mistake. We might leave something out. And oh, by the way, it doesn't matter what order this is in. Typically people leave it in the order that in the select statement, the group by values the same order as the select field, but we could add that here, or for consistency's sake, if we want to, we can add cut it after the hire date as it was in a group by. Again, that is not necessary, but we do need to make sure that we have that comma in here. And so now we might get another error. And what could that possibly be? We don't want to add commas on the last field that we have either in the select statement or in the current flag. Okay? So in a group by, we don't want to add an extra comma there. Okay? Because that's the last field. And O is not the current flag, it's going to be our salary flag that we're looking for. Let's see here. I think I've got job title, hire date, salary, and current flag. That should be it. All right, and it's returning our data. We've got 38 rows here. Got some aggregation here. Looking good so far, but let's go ahead and order by. We're going to sort this. We're going to order by the job title. We want to use the original field that we chose, okay? We're going to do this in descending order just for giggles and grins, okay? We want to use, again, in the order by field, we're going to choose the field, but we're always going to use the original field, not the renamed field or the alias that we added, so that the database can recognize what we're trying to order by. In this case, I did it in descending order, but let's say I want to change it back to ascending order. You can just do it like that. And again, it doesn't matter if it's caps or not. So there you have it. We've got our aggregation here. We've got our condition here. We also have begun to sort this. So this is a nice little statement because it helps us to aggregate the data and present it in a nice view. However, what would make it even better is if we go ahead and join and now use data from another table. We want to know, well, who are these people? What are the names? So let's go ahead and see if we can add to this table here. Need to add the persons table to do this. What we're going to have to do, because there are multiple tables, is add an alias after this table so that we can distinguish the difference between which table we're pulling what data from now, because we have more than one table. So we're going to add an E, stands for employee. We're going to do a left join here. And we're going to go down here. I've already expanded this and pull information from the persons table. Person, we'll just say, oh, I deleted that. Let's try that again. Person P we need to look for a field, right, on E. In this case, business entity ID is found in both tables, and we call those that's going to be the hook that we use. This is entity IT. So what I just did here is link the two tables on a common field. So it has to be in both tables that we could use, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and select this right now. As you can see, it still runs. But what we want to do, the whole purpose of this was we wanted to add the names of the individuals here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And add the first name. Let's see, as we can add the last name from the persons table. We can add that there, but let's remember now, because we've added some information up here, we need to make sure that it's also in our group by section. What we're doing is we're adding to the existing query that we've already built these fields. These are not calculated, they're not calculated, they're not included in a calculation, and that's why they get added to the group by here. I'm going to select this and run again. And look what we have here. Now, we might want to make this a little bit easier to read. So we might want to add a full name here so that we can have that as an option. So guess what we can do here? We can add this. There's multiple ways to do this, but here's one common way that's done. Where you add to combine the names in the table. This is one way that's done. Excuse me. All right. Look what we got here. Now, we have to rename that as full name. Now remember, see how I just typed that freehand? So, doesn't recognize that field, right? So I have to make sure that when I'm aggregating, I have to use the original field names, not the one that I created for better reading. And see how that looks right there? So what have we done so far? We have created a SQL statement that allows us to rename our fields, so for better reading. We've also then included an aggregation. We've learned about the group by here. We still have our conditions here. We've also conditions here. And we've also then joined this information from the table. So we've pulled from more than one table here to get this information so that we now can see who these people are. What you might want to do is cut and paste this for easier reading. You might decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I want to reorder that just so that I can have the first name and the last name. You just have to make sure that when you're moving things around that you keep the commas there. This might make for easier reading. I'm selecting that and look at that. So now I have the first name and the last name and the full name here. I also don't need to actually add a comma here between the first and the last name. If I don't want to, I can just have the space. Since it's not last name, first name. See how I can change that? So I went into this field here and I took the space out there, the comma out. Another way it would make it easier for us to read this would be to go ahead and identify what we call alias here, the table names, right? Because I may not be able to tell by looking at this what table this is coming from, and that's going to be very, very helpful when we start to extend our query and add more information. You're going to want to know where this is coming from. And so this is why you'll see this, often you'll see this if you're reading other people's code. If you're new at this, you'll probably be working on an existing query, and you'll see these little alphabets. Some people put numbers just to make sure that they can identify which table this is coming from, right? E stands in this case for employee. So, table. Okay, same thing here. We can rename these down here. In fact, it would help us to do that if we did that up top. Hire date came from the employee table. Okay. Current flag came from the employee table. P person. All right. See how it's giving me? It's making sure that I don't misspell anything. Really, really like that. So salary flag. So we would have to do that here. Right? We would have to be consistent. It's helpful. Job title. Okay. So this is our completed query. Congratulations, you've completed coding with SQL with confidence. And so next are the resources that we can use for continued learning. So one is the Be a Briefs video series. I'll be posting some more videos for our aspiring analysts and other analysts. There are other courses, Coursera, Udemy, and there's also SQL Zoo. You can use that for continued learning. And more importantly, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.